Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to take this moment to say thank you for listening to the Real ResQ podcast. It means a lot to me that you enjoy these stories as much as I do. Since the start of this podcast, we've had a lot of support from all over the world. It has been amazing. Now, we have companies joining our team that also want to say thank you for all that you are doing out there standing the watch. These companies are offering discounts on their products as a way to support the rescue community and those tuning into the Real ResQ podcast. Just go to therealresq.com, click on sponsors, and see these incredible offers for yourself. This episode of the Real ResQ podcast is brought to you by Breeze Eastern, the world's only dedicated helicopter hoist and winch provider. Axness, because when lives are at stake and conditions are challenging, clear communication is of the utmost importance. SR3 Rescue Concepts, because you don't know what you don't know. And Airwave, the Airwave Performance Mouthpiece, helping you to use breathing to your advantage. Breeze Eastern, they dedicate themselves to our helicopter rescue world. Since the very first helicopter rescue in November of 1945, Breeze Eastern has designed and manufactured superior rescue hoist solutions. While much of the technology and the unique mission requirements have changed over the past 75 years, their commitment to the rescuers, the operators, and those being rescued has not. Contact them today by visiting them at breeze-eastern.com. The Axness PNG wireless ICS system can bring cutting-edge wireless intercommunication system technology to any aircraft. The PNG system can be fully integrated into an existing ICS system or can be carried on and off as a mobile base station. They can go anywhere at any time on any aircraft. Plus, with the strongest and most robust waterproof handheld on the market, this system can take a hit and keep working. Their wireless intercom systems are designed to enhance situational awareness through improved communication capability. This system brings superior noise canceling technology to eliminate rotor wash and engine noise from your ICS. The Axness PNG wireless system is currently deployed in more than 1,800 public safety, air ambulance, and search and rescue aircrafts worldwide. I have personally used the Axness system in 4 different countries and on 5 different airframes. It is awesome. If you want more information, contact them today at axness.com. That's AXNES.com. You just make sure you tell them Quinn sent me. SR3 Rescue Concepts is a training company that can help your helicopter training. They train daytime, nighttime, aerial firefighting, hoist, longline, fast rope, rappel, and more. They can assist your program with standardization and safety checks or just an FAA annual refresher. With the certified flight instructor pilots and experienced crew, they are ready to help your agency keep up to date with current techniques, rules, regulations, and equipment. Plus, right now, SR3 is offering 10% off anything in their web store with the promo code, all capital letters, Real ResQ, REALRESQ. Plus, they are offering another 10% from their partners Petzl and their equipment. All you got to do is send an email to info@sr3rescueconcepts.com, mention this podcast, and they'll take care of the rest. And Airwave. What if I told you that you could train harder for longer and recover faster just by wearing a mouthpiece? I know, I questioned it too. Then I gave it a try. The Airwave Performance Mouthpiece is a breakthrough in performance technology that is scientifically proven with over 15 years of peer-reviewed, published research at the Citadel to open your airway by 25% for improved breathing, resulting in a 20% decrease in respiratory rate, an increase in muscular endurance, and 50% reduction in cortisol levels post-workout. Now, what does this mean to me? Well, now I'm able to train harder, recover faster, and be even more prepared for when that SAR alarm goes off. You don't need to take my word for it. Try it yourself and see how you can use your breathing to your advantage. Go to airwave.com or visit them on Instagram at Airwave to learn more about it. Then, when you're ready to give it a try, because you heard about it here at the Real ResQ, you get 10% off with the promotion code Real ResQ, RealResQ. In this episode, we've got another Australian coming to us. I am stoked. And he started in Australia, made his way over to England, then over to Ireland, then back to Australia, and he has stories in all of those areas. It is awesome. So cool. I'm pumped to have him on. He's doing even more outside of rescue and working with Axnest, working with LSC. He's got his own company. He's just doing great things. So please welcome our next guest, Australian Rescueman, Mr. David Betts. My name is Jason Quinn. I am United States Coast Guard Rescue Swimmer number 500. These are my rescues and rescues from those of us that put our lives on the line every day so others may live. This is the Real ResQ Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Real ResQ Podcast. Today, I've got a brother friend of mine who's from the Down Under. That's right. You know, like it's been a little while since I've had you guys on, so I'm really excited you came on, just so you know, Dave. Just throwing that out there. But this guy, Mr. David Betts, he's a crewman from down there, which means he was a rescue swimmer, a hoist operator, and a paramedic. Just to that's the tip of the iceberg. What's up, Dave? How you doing, brother?
Hey, man, I'm really good. Thanks for having me.
Heck yeah, man. It's an absolute pleasure. So do me a favor. Give everybody a little background about you, who you are, how you got into search and rescue, and it was all three of those that you are, right? Hoist operator, rescue swimmer, and paramedic.
That's me, yeah, absolutely. So I
and badass. Sorry, I forgot to add that one. My bad.
Well, we'll see.
Okay. Just
I grew up in surf clubs in junior lifeguarding, nippers they call it down here in Australia, and that what
do they call it?
They call it nippers, like when you're
nippers,
like a crab.
Nippers?
Crab, nippers, yeah. So it's junior lifeguarding is probably what they call it in the States, and a similar thing probably in Europe as well. That really got me into search and rescue, I suppose. It allowed me to understand there's that whole world out there. I think like all of us, we wander through life wondering what we're doing as a teenager, and I left school and started lifeguarding full time, and at about the same time took up a volunteer position on a AS350 Squirrel or an A-Star, like you guys will call it in the States.
Love it. I love that little bird, by the way. For those that don't fly, it does look like a little chipmunk. It's tiny, 3 blades. Oh gosh, that thing is. I love that little helicopter.
It's the sports car. It's the sports car of the skies. It's a nice
totally
little French. So, that's how I got into it really, and that allowed me to get exposure into the broader industry, which got me a full-time position ultimately, and into the rescue world, and from there my paramedic training and etc. So that was the start for me. So
that's pretty awesome. So now let me back up a little bit, because this is knowledge that I don't know and or I don't remember. So let me start with the rescue swimmer portion. So is that you go through your lifeguard training, like as a junior lifeguard, and that's where you get your water comfortability?
That's where a lot of people do it. Down here in Australia, there's two pathways. You can do it that way, is the way a lot of people get into the industry, through surf life saving and junior lifeguarding basically. And there's a few volunteer helicopters, and they're really flying up and down the beaches now, just looking for people in distress and sharks and things like that. And that really spawned from the late 70s era, when there was large stretches of beach, large stretches of coastline that were very, very unprotected and unpatrolled, and a lot of people around, and dangerous surf too. And before jet skis really became a method of recovery and rescue, that really was the only way to do it, was via helicopter. So we used to just jump out of free jump, same as you guys do in the Coast Guard out. And then then we had a 30-foot static line, 30-foot line, 18 mil, or inch and a half, 2-inch and a bit rope in thickness, and you'd put a strap around someone and connect that to yourself and to them, and then just get lifted out of the water and slung load onto the beach.
What?
And it
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that's and before my era, just before my era, they used to lower down the rescue ladder just like a caving ladder, and people would just climb up the side of it, like skull drag people into the beach. And I mean, this is the 70s and the 80s, that you're doing that. But that method of rescue really held true until the mid 2000s, and there's still companies in Australia that do that now, specifically and only for the surf zone, because you have a really big, thick line that's hard to wrap around yourself. It's really easy to manage in the surf. It's got a bit of give in it. It's not wire cable. You're not damaging the hoist. You're going straight off the belly hook, and you basically plonk the guy in the surf. They bear hug the patient, and then you sling load them about a foot or so above the water back to the beach. And if they fall a foot into the water and pick them up. But I don't know of anyone that's ever dropped anyone, because if you can get a strap on them, you do. If you can't, you don't. But generally speaking, 99.9% of the time you'll be stropping them and bear hugging them as well to get them out of that. And it's only out of that really heavy impact zone. So that's where that started, and a lot of that stuff really went by the wayside when jet skis became affordable and more manageable, and they are better in the surf for that type of rescue now that technology's evolved. A better thing has come along, and a safer way to do it has evolved. But that's where I started, was way back.
That is awesome.
In the late 90s, so 1998, as an 18-year-old kid going, this is really cool. Like life couldn't have been better at the time. It was a lot of fun, So so that's how I got into it all, really, is through.
So out of curiosity, when you would free fall out of the aircraft, would you free fall with the quick strap? Like take all your gear with, and then so you put them around the quick strap, they bring in the long line from the belly of the helicopter, you clip into that, and boom, you both get picked up and brought over.
Yeah, and basically you'd clip yourself up and then clip them up, and that was the procedure. And there was 2 clips with floats on them, and just one, blue to crew and red to them, and away you went. So it was simple and effective with the technology we had at the time, So, and
that's pretty awesome.
And
hey, I'm all about different ways to get it done. Get the job done. That's
exactly. Like it's not the be all and end all, but there's companies down here that still do it now, and there's you see rescues on TV every so often, and you're like, it's for a very niche client, very niche rescue, it's an effective way of doing it. You definitely wouldn't be doing it every day of the week and all the time. There's better ways of doing things, but it's a way of doing it. So that's the way a lot of people get into the industry down here.
The technique to do that.
So it's simple and effective.
Nice. All right, so now you move on to being a hoist operator. So I imagine just the fact that you're flying as a rescue swimmer on board the aircraft, you become a crew member, and that's just the next step, or?
Yeah, correct. That's generally the next step. Once you've got a bit of experience, you start to get slowly shown the ropes and slowly learn the ropes of as a hoist operator to progress through the industry, I suppose. So
beautiful.
So I did that, and then in my early 20s, I partially left the industry. I basically stopped doing it full time and became a paramedic with an on-road paramedic, and but kept flying up as a as a volunteer with one of the organizations that I worked for, and a casual with another. So, and then sort of just over the next few years, did a lot of contract work, a lot of fill-in work. People took annual leave and they needed someone to come down. So took leave from the ambulance service, either leave without pay or something like that, and go into these 6-week, 8-week blocks at different places all over the country. So I sort of bounced around the industry and sort of ended up with this experience base, working at a lot of different places, but never really working full time till I went to Ireland. Really, it was my next full time job. So I was a casual
Did you say
vagabond.
Ireland?
Yeah, so I ended up in Ireland with Neville and Mac and
What?
the boys over there. So yeah, so
I don't think I knew that. That's
I spent a year in Ireland. Yeah, so
okay. So,
yeah.
Hey guys, call me. I'll come in. I want to come play.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
awesome.
I was lifeguarding in England at the time, so I left the ambulance service and picked up a job lifeguard. There was jobs going lifeguarding in England. A mate of mine said there's jobs going in England for lifeguards, and the pay's not too bad, considering where you're living and it's travel and it's Europe. And I was like, absolutely, sign me up. I was 27, I think, at the time. I just met my now wife. And I was like, we'd been sort of dating a couple of months. I was like, oh, by the way, I sort of haven't mentioned this, but I've got a ticket to England. If you want to come, you can still buy tickets. Like you can, I don't know if that interests you at all, but her brother had was living over there at the time. She was sort of by chance planning to go and see him anyway. So the stars aligned, and she came out a few weeks later. But I got a job lifeguarding in England, and towards the end of the summer, midsummer, I heard of a job going in Ireland, in Waterford, and gave the guys a call, gave Dottie O'Callaghan a call, and said, hey, I'm from Australia. I've got about 500 hours in my logbook. I'm a crewman. I'm a rescue swimmer and a hoist operator. I've worked on these 5 or 6 different airframes, from anywhere from a Bell 412 to a Jet Ranger. And I'm a paramedic. He's like, oh, you're looking for a job. When can you start? Where are you? What's going on? Because they'd had a period where a couple of people had just resigned due retirement, and a couple of people had moved on. That had, a couple of people had injured themselves, and so they were sort of pretty short on the roster. So I was right place at the right time, basically. And had the right qualifications, So the advantage of bouncing around job to job to job, it sort of paid off for me there. So I went across and spent a year down there at Waterford and had a great time. I really enjoyed it, actually. It was a lot of fun. Really, really great people to spend some time with, and an amazing experience. My first real exposure to big aircraft and solid training, solid budgets, solid oceans, all weather SAR. It was, I learned a lot. I had a great time. So,
man, that's awesome. Gosh, I would love to get out there and work with those guys just for some of their stuff. I mean, just talking to all those guys and what they do. Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's an interesting place to go. It's definitely all weather SAR. So
yeah,
North Atlantic, Irish Sea, it's a good place. So,
that's awesome. Well, you had mentioned getting some good SAR cases out there and whatnot, but let's back up to your very first one. Do you remember your very first rescue?
Yeah, I had to look through my logbook and I found it, actually.
Did you really? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. I couldn't remember, and but then I remember. When you look it up, you do find it. So I just qualified, and the place I was working, they also had a Jet Ranger, that was really just a training machine, cheap training aircraft, and I dropped in just after I qualified to pick up something, and just say good day to the guys. And the job phone rang. There was a local mountain, Mount Coolum, that was on fire, and there was people at the top of it. So, and the bottom half of the mountain was where the track was engulfed. And I I just sort of turned up. I'd just been for a surf. I had a pair of board shorts on. I didn't even have a t-shirt on. Like I didn't have shoes on, like I'm 18, like, yeah, just, that's what you did, not really thinking much ahead of life. I'm going for a surf and I've got $20 in my pocket. What else do I need? I was just dropping and saying, and the bell goes off and the online aircraft's out on another job somewhere, and they're like, look, we got to get these people off, and the chief pilot was there doing admin. He was like, oh, look, I can go, and he goes, oh, I'm just looking at a crewman's just walked in the door now, so yeah, we can go and do this, like, that's all I heard. And he puts the phone down and said, mate, get your flight suit on, we got a job. I was like, hey, and away we went. So up this, I found some clothes, and I had a locker there and everything in it. So, I kitted up and suited up and had everything I needed. And we went up, and there was 8 or 9 people up there. There was a kid, there was a dog, something, like an infant, like a 1-year-old or something like that, and a baby carrier, and this mountain's on fire. Like it's a lot of smoke. There's a lot of flame, and it's like, man, this is getting pretty close. So we were able to land up there because it's a jet ranger, and started ferrying people off, and had to do 3 or 4 ferries to get people off. And by the end, I was like, man, this fire is actually pretty close here. We're sort of with the last bloke that were up there, like, he's looking at me going, what are we going to do? And I was like, oh, they'll be back, mate. Don't worry, it'll be okay. And I'm thinking, I don't know at all, mate. I'm just trying to cuff it here. Hoping me mate Pete's going to come pick me up, So, and obviously he did.
Don't leave me.
Yeah. So, guys, we'll come back. So, that was the first job, and I'd forgotten about that job, but it was a nice little job, to get as my first real
awesome.
stuff. Yeah, it was pretty cool, especially because then I just got back and got changed and went on my merry way. So it was really interesting because I wasn't rostered on that day or anything. The guys that were out there on some boring medical job, not doing anything interesting.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Man, so that's freaking awesome.
That was job 1. So, first real SAR case. So.
Oh, I got to imagine, like, you walked away with like an ultimate high after that day.
Yeah, like you're young, and I've just been through my training, so it's your first real job, and it's enjoyable, and it happens so quickly, and to have the chief pilot just, as I literally just strolled through the door, and he was the only one there, so I just sort of waved to him as he was on the phone, not really understanding who he was talking to or anything like that. To that straight away, it was good, and he was an ex-Vietnam pilot. He actually won a distinguished flying cross in Vietnam. So he's a gentleman. I keep in touch with him now. He came to my wedding. He's really, really nice guy. Very respected person in the industry. But even back then, I was like, wow, he trusted me to go and do that straight away. That's pretty cool. So. So it was an interesting. I even recall like feeling that now, as I was leaving, I was like, wow, it's pretty interesting. So, yeah.
Betsy, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah, it was good. It was cool.
Yeah. Well, let's keep it going, man. What I know you've got a couple memories, like good memorable cases, I should say, like out of your time being a crew member. So what else you got, man?
Yeah. I had all the usual sort of things that most people get, I suppose. The next really decent memorable thing for me was that, as I said, that time in Ireland. One of the things that really struck me about the Irish guys, and I really saw a big change, is those guys did very solid, very realistic training. So I think it was day 4 or 5 or 6 or something like that. We did a scenario where you went to beside the cliffs of Moher in Ireland, which are about 300 odd foot, and they placed a dummy at the bottom of the cliffs, and you had to basically hoist down and pick it up, because they based that training on real life scenario, and and demonstrating a capability. They wanted to somehow quantify that a crewman wasn't going to freeze up when they needed them to do something to the extent of the limit of the airframe in a way. Like, it's not really the extent of the airframe, but it's 300 foot worth of cable, it's 300-foot cliffs. You know, the only way to get these people off is in certain locations there is to hoist. So they had a very quantifiable way to achieve that, you know, and it's one of those things you pull up in there, and I know this is not a job or anything, but you pull up there and in the hover, and you look at all these people taking a photo of you, and you're like, I just wish I had one of those photos. So you know, it's one of those photos you'll never get of yourself, and you think, oh well, it's the way things are. But we had a few.
You know, I got you. Like, you gotta picture that for a second. Like, you're the guy hanging underneath the helicopter, 250 feet off the bottom of the cliffs of Moher. Is that what you said?
Yeah. On the west coast there,
and somebody's taking a shot of you overlooking the ocean or over with the cliffs like right next to you. Oh my gosh!
Looking out off the cliff, like it's you're looking straight out. You're looking out at America, you know, like just into the horizon. It's a spectacular but beautiful place.
And as you're going down, you're like, "Hey, how you doing?" Oh, what's up?
It's kind of, well, you know, like I was like, you know, it's my new job, you know, focus on what you're doing, don't worry about that. But I just had this moment in my head. I was like, I'd really like one of these photos, but I know I'll never get one, you know, like I'll never get one.
Oh, wow.
I was thinking
man, that's cool.
But I did all the usual sorts of jobs that those guys get. They get a lot of fishing trawls, a lot of, you know, they do maritime SARS, their bread and butter over there, and they do it very, very well because they train very realistically. That's a very simple training sortie, but a very simple example of realistic training. They train for a certain outcome, and in that sortie, they're just trying to see, is this person going to freeze up when we put them 300 foot off the ground and ask them to hoist all the way down, all the way back up, and do that a couple of times. You know, it's very quantifiable and very easy. But the training out there was really quite good. But we did a job down on the south coast there. I was trying to think back as sort of some of the more hairy, you know, jobs that we all do. We're on a search down on the south coast for a fisherman that had fallen overboard, and it was typical Irish weather, you know, 40, 50 knots, 6 odd meter seas, you know, like just a normal, you know, autumn day probably, you know, for them, you know, nothing overly, for the Irish, honestly, nothing overly exceptional in weather terms, you know, but for the rest of us, it's, you know, it's sort of the upper end of where we'd potentially be operating out on our window. But there was a lifeboat out there that actually rolled over. So the lifeboat rolled, and there was 2 of the crew got injured. One had basal skull impact and neurology in one arm, you know, like pins and needles in the arm, and we're concerned of spinal fracture, or not so much spinal fracture, but spinal injury, obviously. And another gentleman had a dislocated knee. So we obviously thought, well, you know, we'll medevac them out of there, and we highline down. I went halfway down, and then we snapped a weak link on the high line, just because the boat's moving around a lot. You know, the aircraft's moving quite a bit because it was very gusty sort of winds, that 40 to 50 knot gusty sort of untidy sort of wind, you know, and short, choppy seas, but really significant. You know, the boat's like almost disappearing down behind those really choppy swells, and then sort of it's riding straight back up over the top of the chop. So I was back up, recovered, another high line down, got close to the guardrail, and then the aircraft got hit by a gust of wind, and then they were calling the aircraft forward, and I could hear it all through the polycom. And then I started to get a pendulum, like a big pendulum acceleration through as the aircraft started to sort of push through a gust of wind, and the crewman's calling, back. And you can see what's happening, of course, but you don't have any time to even think about actioning a quick release system or anything. It happened so quickly. I was literally just about to cross the guardrail. And as that's occurred, the boat's gone up a swell. I've come in and down, and the last thing I heard was Max saying, "Oh fuck, I've killed him." So, like in that Irish, like feck, and I got pendulum underneath the boat, and I just had time to act like a cat and get all four paws up and sort of facing forwards. And fortunately, I was riding the high line. Neville Murphy taught me a really good technique to ride the high line, which is basically put your 2 feet over the high line, cross your feet over the high line, hang on to the handle, and that way you're facing the boat. Like all your danger is in front of you. Your feet are going to hit first, your hands are going to hit second, and hopefully you'll be able to push yourself off. Like I remember him literally saying that to me at one point in my training there. I was like,
great advice.
This guy knows what, this guy's clearly highly experienced, like David listened to what he's saying, like I remember thinking this in my thing. And then as I'm going in under this boat, I can hear Neville's voice going, yeah, your feet will hit first, your hands will hit second, and then you'll hopefully push off, like, and that's literally what happened. I sort of ended up pendulumed underneath the back of the boat. I can feel a cable like pushing me all the way up and underneath the back of the boat. And then I pushed off. I can hear the motor. I can hear the whir of the prop. I come back out and had grease all up the side of my dry suit, up my left leg, and all the way up to sort of my mid flank, and water in the dry suit up, and obviously we, pickled that off, like brought me, obviously up the aircraft, but
let's abort that.
Let's abort this and get that aircraft, get those guys
holy
to
shit.
steam in. So we found a place to land, found a harbour to land at, went and landed there, recovered those 2 guys, and then like all of us in these things, and you've got two patients to deal with. So I dealt with them, rinse and repeat, and get them up to Cork Hospital. So that was one of the more memorable sort of jobs that I had there, where it didn't go as swimmingly as planned, but all the usual sort of jobs out there. I ended up 187 miles out off the Cork coast at night, and had an hour and 2 hours or something on scene, some ridiculous period of time on scene for a search, fruitless search in the end, but it was a nothing job in the end. But I was sort of thinking, how did I end up here? Like I was an 18-year-old kid that barely passed high school, that like started in a squirrel, and then at age 27 I'm over here. It was with these fine folk, so it's
if you haven't been out on some ridiculous search in the middle of nothing and finding nothing, going home empty-handed, then you have not been doing our type of job for a long time.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. So
oh my gosh. Yeah.
So I did a year there, which was a lot of fun. Had a great time. Then returned back to the UK for a little while, and returned back to Australia. Did a body recovery for a gentleman that committed suicide on about a 3,500 foot sheer face. So I was a team that they were roped down to a face, and then and fortunately the angle of the cliff, we were able to get in and hover, but I can't remember the exact altitude, but it was something like 3,500 feet to the valley floor. Like it was a long way. I was like, man, this is a really long way, like, and I remember pulling up in the hover thinking, this is a lot further than the cliffs of Moher. And ironically, that was my, I'd just done a check to line flight with the company that I'd previously been working with back at home. I came back in, just finished the sequence, rinse and repeat, get back online, and then that job came in. So, to get in and get out, we actually employed a highline technique out of which we obviously do down here, but we employed the classic Irish highline technique. So I was able to email the guys and say, "I just thanks for the skills. We just used it over here." So that was anyone that's been on the side of those mountains and come in and out by aircraft, you know, it's a little bit different to climbing them. It's a little bit different to walking along the side of them, because you get it's that depth perception rush that you get. It's like a real visual sort of thing. So hard to explain for those that don't know, but those that know will, you know, have been in that situation before, as many of us all around the world have. So that was
especially on rocks and cliffs and the faces. There is such a different view from not only when you're flying up to the edge of a cliff, but then the guy as your hoist operator, as your winch operator, when you're looking down through, or just that vertical reference is so much different than the guy that's on the hook. And as you and I both know, when you're guy on the hook, you get down and everything that you thought you looked at it and evaluated in the air, now you get down to the cliff and you're like, wow, this is way different. You know, you missed an overhang, you missed a crevice, you missed a crack, you missed the fact there's a flat area, or what you thought was a flat area is now a sheer drop off, and you're like,
it's not a flat area.
Yeah. And it is very deceiving from all three positions when you're looking at it.
Absolutely,
it's wild. So
yeah,
for those that have not done cliff rescue, that's a whole nother bag of tricks that you have to practice. There's no question about it. If you're going to get into that, you've got to practice it. So
yeah, absolutely. And then not long after that, I did a rescue on what was called the Osmade. So I was we have the Sydney to Hobart yacht race down here. It's a fairly yachties would call it a chari sort of a yacht race, because it can take some pretty big weather and down through Bass Strait in the southern part of Australia. You get the Southern Ocean swells come up and push down, push a lot of seas up. So there's a yacht down here called was called Osmade. It had taken that out several times, just locally out the front here, just where I live, just off Noosa. It had rolled in a storm and demasted, obviously, when it rolled. And so it was, you know, typical sort of quite Australian ocean storm, you know, again, big sea, low visibility, all the usual stuff that, you know, like that our colleagues are all used to dealing with. So we ended up out on that, and just the techniques that we use down here is we just did a direct deployment into the water, and then swim to the boat. At one point there, just the way the aircraft and the boat and the swells were moving, I started getting dragged towards the boat, towards the rigging, basically at the back of the boat, obviously a spot that I didn't want to be. And then I felt some rigging wrap around my leg and ended up in a bit of a tug of war with the aircraft, you know, like, and we had a harness that didn't have a quick release system of any description on it.
Okay.
The hoist operator could see, Jim could tell, he could see what was going on and gave me some cable, so I was able to get off the hook and unfoul myself from the back of the boat.
That's right, because you guys don't disconnect from the hook when you get in the water, do you?
Depends where you work, basically. Okay. Like most of the places I've worked, you do. A lot of places down here don't. Now, depending on their swimming ability, really is what it comes down to. There's some operators that do and some that don't, and generally those that don't accept or don't go out into stormy in-water ocean environments. They'll still do a lot of the standard Madivac type of work, and they'll, you know, go into marginal weather environments. But if they sort of have self-imposed weather limits because they self-recognize they don't have that skill set is a way to sort of explain that. But the company I was working with at the time, we did do that. You know, you could either you could free deploy or direct deploy into the water, depending on what you wanted to do. Both procedures were options in the ops manual, you know. So
nice. I like options. That's why I say
yeah, that. Exactly. Yeah. So they're, you know, easy guys to work with and quite professional guys there at Sunshine Coast Helicopter Rescue Service, you know, like just a smaller sort of operator at the time. But that was a 60-foot yacht, you know, it's dismasted in the water, and just anyone that's climbed up the side of a yacht in the water. You know you're getting close to it, and you can feel that thing slapping up and down through the water as it's getting up, and the slap, and you're trying to time it to get your time to swim in and grab the guardrail when it's low, so that you know that when it comes high, you're going to be hanging onto the side of the boat, and then low again and flip yourself up and over. So I managed to achieve that, surprisingly, for anyone.
Well done, sir. Well done.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things you think, yeah, I've learned about this technique, and I've done it in training before, but we'll see how this goes as it comes off. So
if there was any question as to why we need to work out, that would be it right there. Just throwing that out there.
Correct. Yeah, if anyone needs to understand why you need to be fit, that's it. You don't need to be. We don't need to be superhuman fit. We don't need to be fast. We're not Olympic swimmers, but we need to have an ability to lift ourselves and shift ourselves, and a bit of kit with us, So 3 on board for that one with fractured shoulder blade, very untidy deck state, fractured fiberglass everywhere, steel all over the place, cables everywhere, just very, very untidy deck, as we all know, that for those environments. Got the first gentleman off, and we got hit by a squall, just had complete whiteout in the aircraft, so we just zero visibility, and we're just in a little BK 117, so
oh wow,
and she was getting buffeted around and pushed, and so we fortunately we were able to push downwind to a hospital, and shoot an approach and get into a hospital local, which is not the ideal hospital to take the gentleman to, but the absence of alternatives clears the mind marvelously, as a friend of mine once said, and that's what we did, so we got in there, then got a break in the weather, able to get back to base, and we actually grabbed a second pilot and punched back out to get the next 2. The Coast Guard had the boat under tow by the time we got back out, a bit over an hour and a half odd later. And at that stage, because they were under tow, and all the rigging was dragging on the rearward side of the vessel, and there was no way they were going to, cut the rope away and try and reestablish or anything like that. So we got them to go as dead in the water as possible, and got the guys one at a time to jump off the front of the boat. So I hoisted down, moved in, got them to jump, and then that last sort of 5 foot, 10 foot winch into the water, snatch and grab and move them out the way. From nice. That was an effective technique in that set. And it was really the time that we didn't have. We didn't want to go direct to the boat because it was moving around way too much. It was bobbing around way too much for the skill set that we had here. Had I been in Ireland, the guys would have done a highline transfer and a direct deploy, and they would have got on very tidy and very simply. It's what they're used to. It's just the skill set of our guys down here. It was a more comfortable way to work as a crew to do it when the vessel was under tow like that. So
how did you get the first guy off? Did you have, with him having you said an injured shoulder, right?
Unfortunately, I just dropped him. I just sort of said, mate, I'm not bringing a stretcher down here for this. You're just going to have to accept a bit of pain. And he put an arm
right
around
off the boat with him or out of the water?
Yeah, direct recovery straight off the boat. Okay. And he held an arm around me as well, and it was a strop with a double strop technique. So one strop on, then strop under the legs. So he came out, partially horizontal. Beautiful. and hit on the side, and it turned out to be a small fracture. Like, he still had function of that arm and grip strength and everything in that arm, but obvious significant pain because he'd taken a hit, and there turned out to be some small fractures in there, as you'd expect. In a 60-foot yacht that's been dismasted and demasted, and it had 7 ton of lead in the keel, that's still sitting out there somewhere, so so that's how we got that guy off, and then straight after that, and obviously with those weather events, you get a lot of flooding and a lot of other events. So we went and did a lot of flood relief work that afternoon as well. So picked up another 15 odd people in various states, and various locations, and just really flying around in sort of a rural environment that was rapidly going underwater, and just landing and picking people up and dropping them off at farmhouses, and finding cars that were, semi-submerged, and just picking them up and just bouncing one to the next, sort of just in this small little environment. So it was
Wow.
It was an interesting day. It was the first day. It was the second day of a new sponsor, so they were ecstatic because it's one of those once every decade style of sort of rescues, and just news cycles. So it popped up in a lot of news cycles, so it sort of ended up they were really happy with it, obviously, and the community was too. So it was sort of that was a bit of a memorable one.
Wow.
But those guys.
So let me back up something real quick, because you brought up kind of a good discussion point that I like, and I talk about quite a bit, and that's the skill set. Like, you guys went into a vessel that was dead in the water and pushed you down to the water. You climbed aboard the vessel and then picked the guy up off the vessel. Now the vessel's in tow. You said an hour or 2 hours later from the Coast Guard, and it's bobbing even more. So you had the last two victims jump off the boat into the water, and then you get them out of the water. So for us as air crewmen, especially swimmers, our world is in the water, and to get somebody out of the water is way easier than it is to get off the boat. And I don't know if people don't understand that, but when you ask somebody to jump off the boat into the water and they're like, "What? You want me to do what?" Like, yeah, it's easier for us. Trust me, But the fact that what I want to do is get to a skill set. The fact that you guys evaluated that in the aircraft at that moment in time to say, yeah, no, this is too much. There's an easier way to do this. Well done. That's awesome.
Yeah, and the first one to get on the boat, it was an easier way. We just sort of thought, well, we'll have a look at it. And where the rigging was, it was out one quarter of the boat, and all looked pretty tidy and all looked pretty good. And that's why we assessed as we'll attack it from the port quarter. Everything was out sort of the starboard side, and I sort of swum in on that side to see if that was the best option. And it's sort of a good rescue for me, in that you're using different techniques on the one rescue, and had we attacked that rescue now, the skill set of the Highline's gone up. And so that was what I was able to bring back from Ireland is hey, this would have been easier doing it this way and explaining it, showing the guys some videos and some techniques, and it's that benefit we get of being able to share experiences that the last sort of 10 or 15 years we've really changed a lot in the industry. I think that we're able to look at how other people are doing things and do it a different way. So or do different jobs a different way. So
or just add another tool to the toolbox, another option.
I'm
all about it. Yeah, that's awesome. It goes one more step with that too, because you guys went out to do 3 people off a sailboat that rolled. You got one guy that's injured there, and then you're going to pick people off rooftops and a flooded community, cars. Like, would we tell everybody, you never know what we're going to get called out for? We never know what we're going to get called out for. So you better be ready for anything. Because like you said, you went to a boat offshore, a sailboat offshore that was all mangled, to now in a community picking people off rooftops. It's crazy. The day accelerates quickly, Like I went for a surf that morning because it was really good surf, and there's a point break. I'm sure it was, dude.
Down the road that is protected, and it was really, this is awesome. It's raining. There's, it was busy. There's a lot of people out, so it was great surf, but you stick your head out around that headland, and it was untidy, So not surprising, those guys got into trouble, So
hey man, sick.
Yeah.
Well done.
So I stayed there, and then I sort of had that, you know, quarter life crisis again. Like, you know, not really sure what I want to do. I'm not, you know, I went back to the ambulance service, and I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be working night shifts on a truck somewhere. I'm not interested. You know, I enjoy it, but I'm not interested. And I'd sort of always had this childhood harbor to join the military. I couldn't really place my finger on why I wanted to do it or what I wanted to do. So I thought it'd be a good idea to become a clearance diver. So so you can direct entry as a special forces clearance diver down here in Australia. So you
Wow.
go up the
I don't
selection,
know what a
and
clearance diver is, so you'll have to.
it's mine clearance. So it's
Oh,
explosive ordnance disposal, the maritime, you know, underwater EOD and land based, you know, task group and tactical EOD. So you can direct entry into that in Australia, which is brilliant. Like, I was like, oh, it sounds like a great idea at 31 to give that a go. So what could possibly go wrong, you know? So you know, I just
oh God.
made sure I was fit enough and quit work, and took about 4 months off just to eat, sleep, and train. But you know, I was pretty fit beforehand already, you know, just as we all are. But then I just sort of did just the specific level style of training that you'd need to do for that industry, and got through. So managed to get through without injury or anything at all. So it was a lot of fun. And then you know, all the usual stuff that you have to go through to get through those courses. When you're deciding, do I really want to do this? You know, like, do I really want to be here? You know, and obviously I did, you know, so because I stayed and I got through it. And you know, it's I don't mind cold water anymore. I don't really mind being tired anymore, you know. Like, I can stand being hungry and just go, oh, well, it's just the way it is, you know. Like, this too shall pass. I'll be warm again soon, you know. I'll be so, I don't know when, but at some point I'll be standing in a warm shower, so the world's okay.
Rule number 5: embrace the suck.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So,
Oh
but again, it was the interesting part about that training was that I saw a lot of similarities to Ireland, in that they had predefined limits that they had to achieve. Like, they had to, you know, on certain depths you have to be able to dive, certain endurances that you have to be able to swim, certain you know, you have certain amount of, you know, time over distance targets you have to hit, you know, long times in, you know, 3-4 hours, you know, like long time in the water, you know, and be able to achieve certain goals. And I really saw a lot of similarities to what they did in Ireland. It was very, very realistic training. It was very much, this is what we need you to do, so we're going to do this in training. So which I found quite enjoyable. I understood why they were doing it. I understood why we were trying to achieve it. And I just sort of treated it as a training session, you know. So I thought, I'll just, you know, treat this as you know, as a bit of an, you know, as a adventure race or something, you know. Like, so I sort of rolled through like that, you know. So you know, dive sets weighing 40 kilos, another 20 or 30 kilos worth of gear, and you're sort of pushing along, going, man, I've got as much weight as I am. I'm on 70 kilos wringing wet, you know. This is going to be a while, you know, but
20-30 meters underwater.
Yeah, or we did a lot, you know. They do a lot of very shallow water stuff as well, like a lot of very shallow navigation, you know, trying to get to a location and do a task type stuff. So, you know, and very realistic training, you know, put you in the middle of the harbour, in a working harbour, and it's like, get from point A to point B and make sure you don't get hit by a boat or found, you know. So it was it was good. I very much enjoyed it. So I very much enjoyed. You get to
going from rescue side to that, like underwater. What is it? Underwater, like
So
IED, disem.
yeah,
Apart?
mine clearance, ID, tactical operations, tactical, maritime
That's one
tactical
heck of a job
operations.
to get into.
Yeah, so it was like I said, I had this sort of this boyhood dream that I couldn't really place a finger on or quantify. And it was actually a friend of mine's wife was a recruiter for the military, and she said to me as I was going through the selection process, before you go in, like in your interview phase, what do you want to do? Your aptitude testing and all that sort of stuff. I was looking at commando and clearance diver as the two things, because you could actually direct entry as both. And she said to me one day, she said, Dave, if you fail course as a commando, so both of these jobs have 90 odd % failure rate for people that we get, because what we do is we recruit people to do this and then we stick them somewhere else. Like, that's what we do, like she was very honest, and she was like, you're 30, like, if you go in as a commando and you end up injured, which most of these people do, you end up a cook, because it's the only thing we can put you in if you've got a gammy knee. Like, we ain't going to discharge you for your 4 years. That you might be lucky and end up as a medic if you injure yourself badly, So he said, but as a clearance diver, we can guarantee you'll go in as a medic, or we can, you can discharge. You can actually discharge as an injured sailor. Like that's actually a thing in the Navy. It's a lot easier than the Army. The Army don't really let you out, like, at all, So and clearance diver was something I wanted to do over commando anyway, because I'm a bit of a water baby and growing up in the environment, and then working in the environment that we've worked in. So that was how I sort of ended up in that that thing. But it was that sinking realization that this could all go horribly wrong, like this is, and make sure your prior preparation is sorted out, and that's really through training and through fitness, and it's just consistency. It was just consistency, you're not having, and being comfortable spending long periods of time being uncomfortable. So it's not too dissimilar to a rescue swimmer, it's not too dissimilar to the roles that I'd previously done, and that we all do, So I had a paramedic ask me once, a critical care paramedic asked me once about it, and I said, mate, it's the same sort of people that do this, that do that role, that go and do that critical care role. They spend 2.5 years getting themselves sorted out to then go through an 18-month course to go through that. It's the same personality. I just chose to get my level of fitness up to a suitable standard to be able to, spend 10 hours on my back finning in the water overnight rather than sleeping, So because that's what you have to do, they train like just go over there, it's against the tide. Let's go. This is gonna take forever. This is going to take the whole tide change until we get up there, like, so you know that you're not just like, this is horrendous. So, and you're going backwards for, at the high point of the tide, you just see yourself drifting backwards against the landscape. Just, it's like, oh, this is horrendous. People are just like, no, I've had enough. I'm out, like cramping up all over the place and just like, no, I'm out. But it's a very similar mindset to my colleagues and my friends, and that's why I really returned to the rescue swimmer community. It was actually a very similar mindset. So I got out of that and worked in the fires for a little bit as a crewman, which I'd already done some work before. So I managed to catch those large fires that we had down here in 2019.
Oh yeah. Holy smoke, those were all over the news.
Yeah, those. I'd already I'd already no. I after I got out, I did again midlife crisis. What am I going to do? 4 years in the Navy, had a great time, saved a bit of money again. I'm back at the same point I was 4 years ago. I don't know what I want to, like try and find a job. What I want to do, and an apprenticeship became available as an engineer, as an airframe mechanic. So I jumped on that. I sort of always enjoyed working with those guys and enjoyed aviation, and the whole way through, I'd managed to maintain my paramedic qualification. The Navy gave me special leave to go and work for the ambulance service. The ambulance service let me work for them if I did manual skills every 6 months, and I worked with another qualified paramedic, and I just had to do 10 shifts a year. So they were 12 shifts a year. They were incredibly accommodating, so they were like, well, you haven't been along that far, it's only been 18 months in that sausage factory to get through dive school to get through course, so, and once I was at the active teams, they were happy to have me there, and because they thought, well, it's another skill set of another person, that might be handy one day, like that might actually be useful, so so they were quite accommodating and a very highly professional group of people, and took that on, as a bonus. So then I got out and did an engineering apprenticeship, and went back to earning first year apprentice wages at 35 or something. So that was incredibly tight. But for Carly and I, she supported me, and we managed to get through that. I was earning more in one casual shift that I did once a fortnight in the ambulance than I was earning in a week in a fortnight as a first year apprentice. So, again, do you really want to do this, David?
Yeah.
There's this really, like, is this going to the only moratorium that Carly put on it was that this is your last, if you're going to do this, we have to stop this, so.
Well, it's funny because it's actually brought you into a little bit of what you're doing, actually a lot of what you're doing now, which is
absolutely, yeah. So since that, so I finished my apprenticeship, got my license, and worked that. And I still do a little bit of contract work at the moment, not a lot, but a little bit. But mainly my main focus work now is with AXNAS wireless intercom systems and with Life Saving Systems Corporation.
Am I representing the shirt? Yes, I am.
Represent. And for those of you that don't know, Quinny put this shirt on just before the podcast, and I went to find it and realised I don't even own one. So hence I don't have one on, and I don't have an LSC shirt either, because we get to these trade shows and we just give them all away, and then there's none left in the bucket at the end of the day. And I'll get another one next time. So 5 years later, here I am, no shirt. So here we are. But I've managed to put a broad base, and spending all those short periods of time, I suppose, the 6 weeks here and the 5 years as a so I was on road as a paramedic for 5 years, and then some other contract stints as well. And the 12 months in Ireland gave me a different exposure level, and the Navy gave me, and then the engineering sort of gave me a lot of these broad exposure levels to be a jack of all trades, as such, and that's really moved me into a space where I'm able to I do a lot of certification type work with both companies now. So I assist them because I've got the operational understanding of got that experience and exposure and contacts to be able to just ring up my mates and go, hey, what do you reckon about this? This is what we're thinking. This, what's the positives and negatives of this, and be able to have a conversation and really understand what the rescue swimmers are saying. Because the longer we're out of it, the more you forget. Like right. Any trade or anything that you do, like you do get skill fade, but doing that, so yeah, which is a really enjoyable enjoyable phase. You know, we've when I first started with LSC, it was about 12 months after Mario started there, and he's really taken me under his wing and really explained, you know, helped me understand a lot of how to write well and how to research well and how to look through these things, and helped me very much understand how to get into those processes. And, you know, he's just sent me a book I've got here on so at the moment I'm sitting up at night reading Steel, Metallurgy for the Non-Metallurgist, which is definitely me, because I'm definitely not a metallurgist, but you know,
you know what, if it's Mario's recommendation, you might as well go with it. Thank you, Mr. Mario.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Cover to cover, and there'll be a book report on it, you know. So joke about the last. But really,
hey, you know what, when you're done with your book report, send it to me so I have the clip notes. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I don't have a book report. I'm joking around, but yeah, it's been a great curve that I've been on over the last few years, and incredibly enjoyable, because we've really squared up on a lot of things that we've had to do, and with the feedback, things like you're doing and social media, being able to talk to people, and that reach that we now have available. And when you don't know something, you can just reach out to the community and I, you know, send someone a message on social media saying, hey, this is who I am. I saw you did this. I want to talk to you about this. Is what I'm trying to achieve. You know, can we have a chat? And the community that we've got here as rescue swimmers is phenomenal. Like, we really do look after it well. You know, like people will gladly, you know, give you half an hour and talk about what they're doing, what they need, what they're trying to achieve, why they do things, and that really helps us. On this side of the fence now, we're involved, you know, trying to bring new product to market, bring new product to solve problems that we have in the industry. You know, we just got a shameless plug here for LSC, but we just got a air rescue vest. Basically, we call it the Triton Survivor. So it's the first. The Triton.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that, actually.
It's a really simple, really robust piece of kit. You know, we took the Triton harness, we modified it to basically be put on a survivor. So you lost bushwalker, someone that's, you know, minor injuries or only partial, you know, not someone that's beaten up and needs to go into a litter, or, you know, not someone that is where you need a quick strop or a basket or something else. But, you know, the lost bushwalker is a great example. You know, someone on a ship that just that needs to come off, and due to size and space, the best way, you have to take them out in a harness. You know, there's no other method of doing it, or choice if you're using a smaller airframe, like you're in a BK or a Squirrel. You know, something, you know, like you're in a smaller something like for whatever reason you want to make a decision to put someone in a harness. We wanted to provide a certified harness, and we wanted to be able to retain the life jacket ensemble on that, because you take someone off a ship, you know, it's a real thing. Like, they might end up in the drink, you know, the aircraft might, you know, the likelihood is
way more comfortable than putting a quick strap on them, you know.
Absolutely. And it's brilliant, you know, like, so it was great. And it was so when I, you know, Palaron went over the States, worked with Mario and Sam Maness there. He's 78, and, you know, we're still in the shed at 7 p.m. at night, you know, like fixing this and making this thing, and he's super excited, like he's 18 again, and he's telling me stories from when he worked at NASA and like all these. So it's a really, really fun, really interesting time, and I think that's our industry through and through. You never know where you're going to end up. You never know what you're going to do, the people you're going to meet, and I think we do all embrace that pretty well. You know,
well, and like you said, it's to make things better and make the changes. I mean, you know, you and I were talking a little bit offline about just, it's like, it drives me up a wall with this is the way we've always done it. Why is this the way we've always done it? You know, as a matter of fact, I'm going to bring this story up because you and I were chatting about it a little bit ago. Is you have a term for, you know, cut cable, or when you can shear the cable, you know, and there's a back and forth between the cockpit and the guy in the cabin. And, you know, in my opinion, everybody should have access and be able to cut the cable at all time. Well, in your story, if you don't mind alluding to it from this side,
absolutely.
where it started
So
and what you found.
so when I even when I first joined up in the 90s, you know, like in the pre-brief, you know, before you go flying, or in a preamble, at some point when you're in a hover or something, you know, and you're going through that pre-mission planning, you know, how are we going to do this? You know, at a point in the sequence in the flow, it'd come up that the hoist operator would say, confirm I have cable cut authority, and the pilot would say, confirm you do have cable, you know, yes, you have cable, something like that. And I was always like, what's the scenario where the hoist operator doesn't? You know, like, so I was always had a bit of an inquisitive, like,
The
why are we
question,
doing it?
hold on,
You
real
know,
quick.
like,
That
yeah, like
is the
what?
question to ask. Why?
Yeah,
And you need an
I'm
answer.
not saying
You
it's a
need
bad
it.
idea. I just
Yeah.
need to know why. And it's
Yep.
just, and I always got this answer. Oh, it's just our procedures. It's our procedures. It's sort
It's the
of
way we've always done it. Oh,
yeah,
guys, we have
and a lot of our procedures down here are dominated from the military, which all over the world we are, because, you know, they sort of, you know, that's why Igor Sikorsky made a helicopter, is because the military wanted one, you know. Right. So a lot of that stuff, you know, sort of, and they had the time to build the procedures, and it sort of flowed downhill from there. So, so fast forward to you know, midway through my engineering apprenticeship, and we get this Jet Ranger that comes in, and it's got a hoist kit on it. And we're actually refurbing it to keep the hoist kit on it. So we're gonna, you know, pulling the thing off. And what the place that I worked there, we did where I did my apprenticeship, we had 17 odd Jet Rangers, and at any one time we'd be completely overhauling one. So it'd be like every nut, bolt, screw, piece of wire, completely 100% rewired. Everything had come out all the way down to the bare shell. A lot of the time we'd re-tub the things, like, you know, the whole tub underneath had come out and redo. So paint strip the whole thing down and build it back up again. And as I'm building this thing back up, I was working with the avionics guys as part of my module, and, you know, putting this hoist kit back in the aircraft. And there's this switch ensemble that's located down underneath your left leg in the Jet Ranger, and it's the hoist power, a cable cut circuit breaker, and a cable cut actuation switch, guarded switch, and then an authority switch, pilot or crewman. It says cable cut authority, pilot or crewman. And I'm like, what? And then in the back, there's a cable cut switch as well on the pendant. And I'm like, this is where this has come from. Like, this was a down, because before the Australian military had the Black Hawks, they had the Kiowas and the Hueys. And I just asked one of the guys that worked on Hueys, I was like, is this in the Hueys? He's like, yeah, that in the Hueys as well, you know, and it's just due to the power draw, you know. So a lot of the time they couldn't have the amount of, the generators didn't have enough power to be able to power both both circuits at the same time, or have a circuit that could have two switches that could both function, a ballistic cable cut on the hoist. It wasn't a thing that was made yet back when they made these things, you know. Right, so right. I'm like, this is where this has come from. And for 20 odd years later, we've been having this procedure of confirm I have cable cut authority. Yeah, you have cable cut authority, and there's no switch to actually actuate to, like, a, so, you know, identify, confirm, select, the same terms process, like a cockpit term, like it was a, you know, it's written up as, you know, and in that same identify, confirm, select type methodology that we use when we're actuating a switch in the aircraft, you know, same terminology. So it was so it's that interesting question of, you know, why are we doing it? You know, we don't know what we don't know, and we all have so much to learn, you know. So you know,
and with everything changing too, because, you know, like the Sikorsky, I'll throw them a bone. Sikorsky made that change when they were building, you know, the H6 here. Like, man, we need a little more power to be able to put power to both switches. So it's one power source. Everybody throws the switch at the same time, and somebody's sharing the cable. But something is so simple as that is that conversation piece of why are we still doing it that way? And if you have an answer, like, we're still doing it that way. As a matter of fact, this is one of the things I love about Mario, is Mario will come back and be like, actually, the reason we're still doing it that way is because of this, this, and this. I'm like, you have an answer, and I appreciate that. You know, it's even if I don't want to agree with them, which, you know, That's what we
Yeah,
got to do. He's very right.
Yeah, and
So
for just because we're doing it this way over here doesn't mean we need to do it that way over there. And we're also different all around
yeah,
the world. I talk with a few of the guys from CHC, globally, and they're they're a global company that has different procedures for different environmental conditions in different parts of the world. Like the way the guys work down here in APAC is different procedures to Ireland and different procedures to Norway. And I really respect that they all do the same thing. They go to a location and pick up a person via a hoist, basically.
It's so simple.
But there's so many different ways of doing it. Yeah. You go somewhere and hoist goes out, hoist goes in, but it's so much more complex than that. And there's so many nuances and reasons why, this equipment works well in this environment with these procedures, and that piece of equipment works really well in that environment with those procedures, so it's vastly different reasons to effectively, do, and you could winch to the same ship. It's completely conceivable that a ship leaves England, steams out past Ireland, jumps in through the sewers, says g'day to you over there, then comes down to us, and then ends up, off California on the Coast Guard, and and there's 4 aircraft that hoist to that ship, all do it 4 slightly different ways, depending on the methodology, the environment, the procedures, the crew mix, like the equipment, all of those different things. So,
no, I
that's
totally
what I
agree.
really like about Eurosa, that those guys really get together and explain to each other why they do things, and they're unashamed about this is why we do it this way, and they're quite willing to listen. I think that's one of the benefits social media has had for our industry, is that people are able to get together and communicate from other sides of the world. So.
No, it's one of the things that I really enjoy, especially now with everybody that I've talked to around the world. It's like you said, everybody's doing the same job. We're all getting called out to go rescue somebody. The different techniques that we use, the different piece of equipment that we're using, the different helicopters that we're using. I know it's equipment, but everybody's got a little something different, but it works. Not everything that we do doesn't work. It's like, hey, there might be a better way to do it. It might be an easier way to do it, but either A, you haven't learned it, you haven't tried it, or it's not anything that's ever come up because you're so set in your ways that it's like, oh, why change? It works. Well,
yeah. And, a really good example is, you guys in the States, they do a lot of the dynamic insertions and extractions, and Ezamat do that a lot, and it works, and they do it incredibly well, but a lot of the jobs we have down here, you just can't do it, like it's you're descending down these really deep gorges, and then you'll be sitting in 180-foot hover, sending someone, threading a needle down down a little hole in some gum trees, and it's really steep terrain, or it's really you can't move. Like once you're in there, that's it, you're committed. Like if you get into a situation, a lot of the time you do not have flyaway. And that's why the 139s become such a popular aircraft down here, because there is no movement. It's like you lose an engine, you're sitting there. Until you can get someone to, hopefully get someone to the ground and cut the cable, and hopefully you can get out of the place, and it's not that we really put the aircraft in significant periods of exposure down here. Like, most of the time there's an escape plan always discussed, and that's part of your generalized pre-briefing. Well, if something this happens, then I'll do this, but it's not so easy as when you're up above the tree line in Switzerland, and you can just nose the thing over and away you go, or you're out off the coast of Ireland and you got forward airspeed because it's blowing 50 knots. So the litter's going to sit there rock solid anyway. It ain't going nowhere. I got 65 knots on the nose. We're fine. it sort of doesn't happen so much down here, and different. I'm sure you guys, people listening all over the world, have similar things as well. So so it's interesting. It's really good to see why we do things different ways. Down here, everywhere. So yeah.
I love it, man. I do. And I love to learn what everybody else is doing and the new equipment and just what's going on. It's God, it's so fun because when you start looking at it, you're like, wow, they're not wrong. That's really a good idea. Or it's like, ooh, you know what? I like where your head's at, but that's not what I'm going to do. And here's why. And hey, whatever.
Yeah. It's
get the job done.
I remember being at a Goodrich Hoist Users conference a few years ago, and the service in the States basically was saying, hey, we don't have any procedures. We just go out and do it. And a few years later, those guys are completely different because they put their hand up and sort of said, look, we kind of think we know what we're doing. We haven't killed anyone yet. We haven't injured anyone yet, but we kind of need a hand. These are some footage of the job. This is footage of jobs that we do. This is our area of operations. And, they're seem to be a really quite a professional service now. They've gone and got new aircraft and got decent funding and training budgets and manuals and SOPs and checklists and come up to the modern world. But that's one of the things, like I said before, one of the things I like about our industry. We're not afraid to sort of say, hey, I need help. Can I take some of your experience, please?
Oh yeah. No, I mean, it helps so much too, especially when you start a knowledge sharing, just stuff we've done. So
yeah, absolutely. So
Betsy, dude, this has been awesome, man. It's some great knowledge. I love the stories. I love your first rescue, actually. I think that one, and then getting swung into the bottom of the boat and swimming on the yacht. Yeah, you know what? I liked them all. It was good. Well done, sir. Well done. But listen, man, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this stuff and just having the conversation with me, man. I appreciate it. I love what you're doing now too. It's awesome.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's been a fun process for me. It was even just nice to look back through my logbook. I hadn't done it in years, so I think it's something we all don't do, so I think it can get some good memories and, happy and sad memories at times with different things that have happened over the years. But yeah, it's as the Eurosa guys say, fly safe and swim hard. So thanks very much. Appreciate what you're doing. So it's great.
Hey, no, my pleasure, man. And I'll see you at the Eurosa meeting, Rescue Crewman meeting in Portugal. Let's do this. Woo! First beer's on me.
There?
I think I know you from HAI anyway, so I'm just
no trouble. We'll be there. So.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it, man. Right on. Well, thanks, brother. I'll see you in November.
Sounds good. Speak soon. Take care, mate.
All right, brother. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of here. Go. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Real ResQ podcast. Please take a minute to like, subscribe, and hit that share button. I'm pulling chocks and taking off. But before I go, if anyone out there has a rescue story they would be willing to share, I would be humbled and honored to have you on as a guest. Or if you have any questions about rescue or anything else we talk about here, send an email to jason@therealresq.com. That's Jason at TheRealResQ.com. You can also check us out on our web pages, therealresq.com, our Facebook page, and our Instagram page @TheRealResQ. Again, a special thank you to all of you staying on the watch today. Always remember, when that SAR alarm goes off, those in distress are praying for a miracle. They are going to get you. Until next time, fly safe and swim hard.